Welcome back, everyone, to Discovering Your Mission. I'm your host, Dr. Mordecai. And today, we're stepping into a conversation that sits at the intersection of leadership, public service, and personal integrity. I've said this before on this show, but I probably stay a little too close to my Amazon account. And one day, on a recommendation, it popped up, and it was the title of this book, How to Be a Successful Politician. I don't know what you might be thinking, but when I opened it, what I found wasn't about spin or sound bites. It was about authentic leadership preparation, character, and service. As I read it, I couldn't help but see how deeply transferable these lessons are to college and university presidents, executives, and educators who are trying to lead well in incredibly complex times. Well, today, I have the honor of talking with the author of that book. He's a formerly elected official, educator, and multi-time author, Brian Haggerty. We're going to explore what it really means to lead with integrity, to prepare yourself for the roles you're called to, and to navigate politics of any kind without losing who you are. Let's dive in. Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's Dr. Mordecai, and I have the opportunity to talk to someone who I've been waiting for quite some time. I kid you not, I'm probably addicted to Amazon. No plug for Amazon there, but I'm probably addicted to Amazon. And ever so often, I'll get these recommendations. And so I received this recommendation from Amazon for this particular book, How to Be a Successful Politician. And the author of this book is now with us because when I read it, I said to myself, the information in this book is so transferable to those of us that are community college presidents, university presidents, those that are serving in these capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us author of the book as well as former politician educator, Brian Haggerty. Thank you so much for making time, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Mordecai. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Well, listen, I am going to jump right into it because we've got about roughly 20 minutes together. So let me just start here. The book outlines so many critical lessons about leadership and service and purpose. What inspired you to write this book, Brian?
It had begun, the content of the book had begun back around 2010. I was the commissioner in my second term for the Department of Public Affairs. And my mother, who had been a school teacher for 36 years, from whom I learned a great deal, of course, said to me, now that you're doing educational outreach programs, why don't you teach a course in, as she called it, manners? And I said, well, that's interesting, because my mother taught me the table manners growing up, and I thought that would be a nice idea. So I did that, and I started inviting members of the community. The word got out, and the next thing I knew, I was contacted by the accounting teacher for the local high school. She said, I'd love my students to come in and sit in on this. And it was more than just table manners. It was how to introduce yourself, how to shake hands, how to engage in conversation with others. And the kids loved it, so much so that then they invited me to the high school to teach it to an even larger group of students. From there, a friend of mine through politics invited me into Belleville High School, and I went over there and did it in Belleville High School, and I wound up spending about 6 years there. And it was amazing. The kids absolutely loved it. So obviously I expanded on the content. I wound up naming it the Class Academy, CLASS, and CLASS is an acronym for Communications, Leadership, and Social Skills, something everybody needs to learn, and nobody has, possession of that. That's for anybody. So that went on for several years. It got a lot of local publicity, county, state publicity. And next thing I knew, the county chairman, who's a dear old family friend as well, Lou Stellato, he reached out to me and he said, listen, we've got a lot of these younger politicians. They don't come to meetings in jackets and ties, and they don't really know what they're doing. Can you come and do a teaching or a seminar on a weekend? I said, absolutely. That's when I got the idea to take everything that I was teaching and repackage it, so to speak, into this book called How to Be a Successful Politician, excuse me, which of course is a humorous title, because I remember when I first put it out, I had a lot of people writing in the comments, so you're teaching them how to be liars and connivers. I said, no. I said, if you read it, you'll see I'm saying something completely different. And that's what happened. And then to create the book, because this is about the fourth book I've created, all the other books were within the purview of my program and my education. So this book, like all the others, I put it on Amazon, and the next thing I knew, to this day, now that was 2017, here it is 2025, people are still buying it, and I'm getting emails from people around the world, especially mostly people who are young people who are looking to get into politics. Because one of the things I realized at the time is that there are lots of books out there about political strategy, how to run a campaign, how to raise money, but no elected official had ever written a book to tell other people, younger people, up and coming elected officials, or people who want to run for office, what is expected of you and how you should carry yourself and what you need to do to be successful, but not successful because you want to just keep winning, successful in being a public servant, by being the one who sets the example and inspiring others to do the same. And that's what we need more of. So that's
Yes,
the story.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I will tell you that takes me right into my second question that I have for you. And so, all of my educators that are watching this, please turn up the volume here. One of the things that Brian talks about in the book is about integrity, preparation, authenticity. That's really what captured me as I read the book, because from the very beginning, opening the door to the book, you really highlight about this sense of authenticity is critical, but it also creates this whole new framing around what we consider to be successful. And just as you just named, it's not about winning, it's about the service. So my question to you is, how should we define success in leadership, in your opinion?
Well, for me personally, again, I wrote the book from my point of view, and I come from a political family. My father had held public office. I had held public office. My sister-in-law currently holds public office. My great-grandfather held public office. And lots of cousins and people were involved in New Jersey politics, state politics, county politics over the years. So for me, the integrity of it all is being of your word, number one. We all know that the reputation of politicians is that they make promises that they can't keep, and I would never do that. I would always at least have the caveat. If somebody said to me, well, can we do this? Can you promise us that? I said, I can't promise you anything, because there's so many moving parts to holding elected office anyway. It's not like somebody's elected king and can do whatever he or she wants. So to me, it was all about being of your word, never making a promise you couldn't keep, showing up, being reliable. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. But you never, ever, ever commit to doing something unless you know absolutely, positively, and wholeheartedly that you can absolutely do what it is you say you're going to do. And I think being authentic is just being yourself. People can see through, I always talk about like the typical politician that we see in the movies, or the idea of the used car salesman with the fake smile, and they want to be your best friend, and at the end of the day, they do not have your best interest in heart. So this process is not done overnight. It takes years and years of you sticking to your principles, your integrity, honoring your reputation, your word, your commitments, and doing that and being that person consistently, so that over the years, you're developing your own brand. Meaning that everybody knows when they hear your name, they know exactly what that means. They know what to expect. You don't change with the tides. I didn't say one thing one day and another thing another. It's not in me to do that. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of elected officials are afraid to tell the truth. So I don't think they set out to, I don't want to use the word lie, because that's a harsh word. I think a lot of elected officials don't set out to misrepresent things. But when it comes to the public, there's so much the public doesn't understand about government and how it works. So I think, and I know because I felt in those situations, I could feel the inclination to want to say things a certain way. But I found that if you're just direct with the people, at the end of the day, people will respect that far more than if you fib to them. Because once you fib or lie or misrepresent, that's it, you're done. People will never see you in a different light. And they don't forget that, and rightfully so. So if I couldn't do something, I made sure I let it be known. If I could, I made sure I did it.
That's right. That's right. You know, one of the other things you talk about in the book that is so transferable to what we do in higher education is about preparation, and you really lean into this idea of you need to be prepared. It's not just about taking on the role; you need to be prepared. My question to you is, how does preparation in your mind separate those who lead from just occupying these positions compared to those who truly are prepared and have a stronger sense of authority as to what it is that they're doing?
Well, you have to do your homework.
Yeah.
And you have to be very, very well versed in whatever it is about which you're speaking or leading. And like, for instance, in my first term, I was the director of the Department of Public Works. Now, what did I know about that stuff? I didn't. It wasn't my background. But I didn't have to know everything. I had to know how to ask the right questions. So the engineers would report to me, the superintendent would report to me. And, when you have public works projects being done, paving roads, replacing water and sewer, you've got to do your homework and kind of become maybe a little bit of an overnight expert in certain things, but you also then have to know what questions to ask. So anytime I went into a meeting or anytime I was going to be speaking on anything, I would do extensive reading and take notes and prepare myself and write down questions that I assumed others would be asking me if I were going to present these things. So it's just doing your homework and showing up prepared. As we say in Semper Paratus,
Yes.
always prepared.
Always prepared. The book also outlines different strategies about communication, being clear, concise, credible. What are communication traits that you believe truly distinguish great leaders? You've already begun to talk about a bit of this, but I certainly wanted to ask the question to see if there was more there.
Well, I teach in that book, as you know, and I've taught to many students over the years, how the art of public speaking. You don't need to go pay somebody thousands of dollars to become a good public speaker. I've seen people enter politics who couldn't speak at all when they had to first put that microphone in their mouth and get up and say a few words. And then with a little bit of coaching and a little bit of practice and a little bit of self-awareness, they became excellent the more they did it. So to me, effective communication skills are you just have to practice. You have to practice. And I would teach things about eye contact, gesturing, various different little tips and tricks, making sure that when you speak in a room, that the people who are all the way in the back of the room can hear you, learning how to be articulate with a little bit of self-awareness and practice. Anybody can learn to be articulate. I mean, unless somebody has a speech impediment, but for the most part, most people do not. So that's something people can work on. And I felt that the greatest skill that anyone can develop, whether you're in politics or in business or just in life in general, is the skill of self-awareness. Because self-awareness is the key to self-improvement. If you're not aware of every aspect of yourself, how you speak, how you act toward others, your behaviors, your body language, the way you leave people feeling about you after an encounter with you. These are all things that can only come about through self-awareness. And I would teach my students, every night before you retire to bed, think about your day, think about the people with whom you had spoken, the different instances in which you found yourself, and ask yourself, did I speak to everyone kindly and respectfully as I would hope they would do to me? Did I act toward people respectfully in a manner in which I would hope they would do to me? Did I do anything to make anyone uncomfortable? Because that's the last thing I would want to do. And the more you think about that, the more you may pick up on something and say, oh, I could have done that a little bit better. Oh, I could have said that a little bit better. And eventually you become hyper aware of every aspect of yourself, and you can use that to become a greater and greater version of who you are, so long as, of course, your heart is in the right place and your intentions are good. I hope that answers the question.
That answers the question beautifully. One of the things that you talk about, too, is about this moral obligation that we have as leaders to provide mentorship and the engagement in mentorship of others. In your opinion, who has been the most influential mentors for you, and how do you continue to gauge Brian and paying it forward?
I've had many mentors. Um, Politically, as I said, the chairman, Lou Stellato, one of the most genius political minds and a man of immense integrity, which is why he was always so successful. So he was one. I had various others, relatives, family, friends. Many of these people are long since passed, not Lou Stellato, he's with us. But when I was younger, I valued being with older folk who had already done successfully the things that I wanted to do. And I would pick their brains, and they were gracious enough to never mind sharing all of their knowledge and background with me, and their tips and their tricks, and that's how I learned. I learned by listening, I learned by watching, but I had to obviously have the interest in doing so. So I would say that. And as far as paying it forward, I've been a mentor to, at this point, well, of course, thousands and thousands of students have had my program, but hundreds of students that I would personally interact with, especially after high school. Many of them would go through college. They would stay in touch with me. They would email me questions. Mr. Haggerty, how do I handle this? How do I handle that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I was more than happy. In fact, it's an honor to shape and mold a younger person with such great potential to move into greater and higher things. And so now many of these students are pushing 30. But interestingly, even though I'm retired from that, in the gym, I go to the gym every day, and there's a whole sea of younger people there who, over the last 6, 7 years, I mean, even they've been cycling through. I don't know what it is. I sit at the counter, and they just all come up to me, and they pick my brain. And these are all great kids. They who wants to be in business, so I'll teach the different business forms, LLCs, corporations, S corps. I'll tell them what's involved, or they'll come to me with an idea, and they want me to poke holes in it, and I do for their own good. But I make sure I build them up, because if they're on the right track, I think of myself at that age saying, well, I didn't know everything. It's not possible to be young and know everything. But the fact that these kids look up to my words and come to me and trust me with that info, it's a wonderful thing. So I'm still doing it. I'm just not doing it formally, and I'm not doing it in a school setting or even in a business setting.
What I love about it, though, is that you are describing this as it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's a calling, but it's part of who you are. And I think that there's lessons in that for those that are watching and listening to this, because to do an evaluation, that self-awareness that you talk very deeply about in the book of who you are, your purpose, and as you already talked about earlier in this interview about the redefinitions of success. Because if we are to in our authentic selves pay it forward, you could show up to the gym and still help someone else. It doesn't have to be through an official institute of some sort. It's just part of how you dwell in life.
Yes.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you this. I know I'm getting close to time here. Resilience. You talk about resilience. I will tell you now, as a college president who's coming up on 5 years of service in this seat, there are presidents, thank you. There are presidents that I started this journey with that are no longer presidents. There are presidents who I have conversations with that they are, I think the best word I've got in this moment is struggling to remain engaged and continuing to stay centered around why they're doing this work, given what else is happening in the environment. That sense of resilience as an elected official, as someone who's done this, trained others on this, what advice do you have for those of us that are college, universities, presidents, executives, when it comes to this idea of resilience? What advice do you have for us?
You've got to do what you love and enjoy.
Yeah,
If you don't have the interest in what you're doing, how do you get up every day and do it?
yeah.
I used to drive anytime I was in the schools, and Belleville High School was the school where I was there the longest, and I was there in person. And then eventually we wound up in select schools in Broward County, but I was on video then. So I didn't get a chance to meet the kids. I would go into the schools and do assemblies. So the kids they would know who I was, but I didn't know who they were. But I think in what you were saying, you've got to love what you do.
Yeah.
And I always loved what I did. And I'm so glad I can still do it, as I say, even though it's not formal, it's still so important because watching young people grow and emerge and knowing that you had a little something to do with it, especially when they tell you that, and I've had many of them say that. They say, oh, I'm so glad you've helped me with this. I wouldn't have been the person I am without you. It's like, it's very humbling because I'm just being me. I'm nothing special, but I'm trying to share the wisdom and the experience and the knowledge that has been shared with me by those before me, and now passing it on to the next generation. So I hope that answers your question, but I think you just have to love what you're doing.
Understood. And remaining focused on that love
Yes.
as well. Yeah. Second to last question, Mr. Haggerty. What strategies would you recommend for navigating the political dynamics? I can't tell you how many presidents I've talked to or those who desire to be presidents, but they're scared about the political aspects of the job. That's not why they want to do it. And I can't tell you how many folks that is literally scared and says, I don't want to touch it because I don't want to be a politician. I just want to be an educator. What advice do you have for those that are seeking to navigate these political spaces?
Well, I've always said that politics is the business of people and personalities because that's what you're dealing with. And you have to don't take yourself too seriously. I never did. Because before dealing with anybody, and when you're dealing in any situation where politics is involved, that doesn't mean elected office. That could mean the politics of being a president of a college or university, being the president of a company. There's politics always involved because there are people involved. There are people who have agendas. So for me, I think long and hard and plan very clearly, but I never minded being the guy who let everybody else look good and walk away thinking they got what they wanted. And as long as I felt I steered everybody into the right direction to do the right thing, let somebody else take the credit, if that makes sense. Especially when I was in elected office. I never wanted my name on anything. I said, as long as the right thing gets done, I don't care. Because what winds up happening is people talk. And once you develop, as I said, that brand, that reputation, then that precedes you. But it's a very difficult thing, and the political atmosphere in this country it's very worrisome to me. There's no way to have a conversation, and everybody is divided. They're outraged. I believe that social media and the media works to stoke that because then they get views and clicks. And I've pretty much divorced myself from all of that. So I think if you treat people, I mean, again, the golden rule, if you just treat people the way you would like to be treated, if you speak to people the way in which you would hope to be spoken to, that's worked for me. I've never had any problem. I have people, friends of mine, who are all over the political landscape, who are the right, the left, and I've never had an argument. I don't care that they may have a different view than mine. That's their view. I respect that view. And then they wind up respecting my views. So again, it's the business of people. It's the business of personality. You have to be willing to give the credit to everyone else because at the end of the day, you'll wind up being rewarded in other more important ways.
That's powerful. That is powerful. As you know, the name of the show is called Discovering Your Mission. I love to ask all of my guests this question in closing. Brian, will you please share with us what is your personal mission statement and why?
Well, it's changed over the years. For me, it's getting up every day, showing up wherever I have to show up, being authentic, being me, being who I am, being respectful, being honest, being one of integrity, and trying to leave everyone in which I encounter that day feeling better about themselves. That's what I enjoy doing. Because I don't need it for me. I'm fine. I'm a very simple person, actually. So I would rather everybody else walking away feeling better about themselves because you don't find enough of that today anymore.
I love it. Let me tell you, this has been a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book, How to Be a Successful Politician, Brian Haggerty, educator, multi-author of many books. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Haggerty. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Mordecai. This was a great pleasure, and I appreciate your reaching out, and I hope these words help whomever is going to hear them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Take care, my friend.
Take care, Doctor.
What a powerful conversation. As I reflect on my time with Brian Haggerty, here are 3 key takeaways I want for you to leave with on today. First, Brian reminded us that success in leadership is not about winning, it's about serving. Whether you're an elected official, a college president, or a classroom educator, the real measure isn't titles, votes, or visibility. It's whether people can count on your word, whether you tell them the truth, even when it's hard, whether your decisions are rooted in the good of those you seek to serve. That redefinition of success from winning to faithful service is a shift many of us need to reclaim. Second, he underscored the power of preparation and self-awareness. See, you don't have to know everything to lead, but you do need to do your homework and ask the right questions. Preparation builds authority and self-awareness. Being honest about how you show up, how you speak, how you make people feel becomes the key to growth. As Brian said, when you replay your day, ask, did I honor others? Did I honor my values? See, you're not just reflecting in those moments, you're building a personal brand of integrity day by day. Third, Brian framed politics, not just in government, but in organizations, as the business of people and personalities. For those who are afraid of the political side of leadership, his reminder was simple yet profound. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and be willing to let others get the credit, and stay anchored in your mission. When you do that consistently, your reputation will walk into rooms before you do. As we close on today, I want to speak directly to you. The leaders, the aspiring leaders, the person trying to stay faithful in a complicated season. See, your mission is not your title. Your mission is not your position. Your mission is who you choose to be every day, in the meetings that no one sees, in the conversations that no one records, and in the quiet moments when you decide whether to show up with integrity or with convenience. If you lead with authenticity, stay prepared and commit to leading people better than you found them. You're already living your mission, whether anyone claps for you or not. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to stay connected with this work. Visit itsdrmordecai.com for more conversations, resources, and reflections designed to help you live with purpose and lead with courage. Until next time, my friends, keep discovering your mission and walking it out with integrity. Take care.